on some of the things that Harvey said, but also blend in a little bit what Eric Green talked about, the Human Genome Project, and particularly the role of data. I think we're at a time with regard to emerging infectious diseases, not so unlike cities in the mid-19th century in Europe felt with regard to cholera epidemics that were ravaging through them. They didn't know what was causing them. They didn't know how to treat it. And then it was someone collecting data. John Snow, someone very familiar to this audience, began collecting data. And with the data, he could understand, and we could understand, that it was a waterborne infection, and eventually put together proactive responses, hygiene and sanitation, that has diminished the threat of cholera, not removed it, but diminished it in cities. And so right now, Harvey described a project, the Global Virome Project, which is a data production project connected to emerging infectious diseases. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the project. It's a large-scale project, an ambitious project, to really collect a near-complete catalog of the viruses that exist in wildlife with zoonotic potential. And so, as well as all the metadata and where they are and what animals they are. This is really an audacious and ambitious project, but it's not more ambitious or audacious than the Human Genome Project that you heard about. The Human Genome Project was a data project, and now the data from that project is really increasingly driving the practice of medicine. I think in a similar way, the Global Virome Project, having this catalog of data of all the viruses that are out there, can transition how we respond to emerging infectious diseases. And so how can we use this? Well, I think with regard to our response, right now we're developing measures aimed at individual viruses. It's because we only have a handful of viral genomes. If we had 1 million viral genomes, we could begin applying the powerful tools of artificial intelligence to crawl through that data and identify features that are common at a family level. And so it would allow us to develop countermeasures that are not aimed at individual viruses, but are aimed at families of viruses. So activities like CEPI, they're very interested in developing a MERS countermeasure. Well, MERS is a coronavirus. With the data from the Global Virome Project, you could develop countermeasures against coronaviruses. And it would work against MERS, it would work against SARS, also a coronavirus, but it would also work against the coronavirus that's in the mouth of a bat that has the potential to jump to humans and cause disease. And with a coronavirus countermeasure, we'd be in position to respond to that. And so less reactively and more proactively. And so, so I think if you teleported John Snow back to the present time, he would view it as a very challenging time with regard to emerging infectious diseases, but he would also say that we have ways to generate data and analyze data that will allow us in the future to proactively respond to some of these threats. Another use of project, the Global Virome Project, connecting to the Human Genome Project, is that you heard Eric Green describe how it cost, it took 7 years and cost close to $1 billion to generate that first human genome. It now costs, $1,000 and can be done almost in a day. And I think a similar way, Global Virome Project would drive the development of diagnostics, where we can imagine a future where there'd be people out in the fields interacting with wildlife and livestock with thumb drive size instruments that you just put a swab of saliva onto it from an animal, and no muss, no fuss. The sequence information is sent into the cloud. There's no laboratory involved, and eventually we begin to have sensors that are now detecting at a global scale the emergence of viruses, a little bit like weather. Weather is an area that really embraced big data, and though we can't change the weather, we know when it's coming, and we can respond to mitigate it. And so I think that we're in a position to take new approaches to this problem, and I think there are innovative and disruptive approaches.